3 matches remaining in the AFL season before the finals, one in particular of great interest at Football Park this afternoon. Welcome to the footy panel and welcome to the panellists, Bob Davis, Gerard Healy, Don Scott, Ian Robertson, and our special guest today, the Executive Director of the AFL Commission, Ross Oakley, who's going to be our panellist. Welcome, Ross.
Hi. Good, thank you.
Now, Ross, a lot of people know you as an outstanding administrator, but not many people remember you as a footballer, not the people of my age. Or you do, Bobby, I know. You didn't play against him, did you, Bob?
No.
Bruce, I think you'd have to be a mathematician, wouldn't he, the way this draft has worked out?
Oh, you're going to jump into him right away, are you? Let's leave that for a moment. I want to take Ross through some of the highs and the lows of his football career, because he did play 62 games at St Kilda, and yes, that's not Darryl Baldock, that is Ross Oakley. Have a look at this. Looks like dazzling Darryl at his very best. And yes, over the top, that is a specky, Ross.
Where's the ladder? Where's the ladder?
But here's one. Here's the beat the champion, Ross. Not too long ago. Have a look at this handball effort. Look at the kids' faces. They can't believe it. Some of the highs and the lows.
Terrible.
Like to make a comment?
Well, I can't make too much about that last one, particularly, Bruce. But yeah, there were some great moments in football, and I remember that mark very well. I was sitting on top of Freddie Swift's shoulders, actually, and that was a photo that certainly gave me a great thrill.
I'm sure it's hanging somewhere very close to your heart. Let's take a look at some of the winners yesterday in the round so far. And on Friday night, the Saints by 43, Geelong in what was an outstanding performance by 20 over West Coast, Footscray in a surprise over North Melbourne, costing them the double chance, and Carlton in an absolute thriller at Princess Park by 1 point.
This update of the AFL ladder is brought to you by Carlton and United Breweries.
And really it's all around Geelong and Adelaide, isn't it? If Adelaide wins today, you'd expect Hawthorn to win and hold their position. Adelaide wins, West Coast drop down 1, Adelaide move up a couple, Geelong miss out. Adelaide lose today, Geelong in the 6, and that will send some tremors through some of the other teams. Tell me, Bob.
Just like a draw will even be all right, Bruce.
Who's we, Bob?
Oh, well, that team down the road a little bit.
Geelong. Let's have a look at some of the highlights from the round so far. And the Cats, oh, he's a magician, isn't he? Look at this. Ablett.
That be special. Oh, the mark is taken. The kick is good, and it's a goal to Tudor.
West Coast didn't have a lot to celebrate. Chris Mainwaring will be our special guest a little later. That was Sumich's 400th goal. Here's the Ablett goal when he crashes into the post in the third quarter.
They're at each other. Ablett. Oh, he's crunched into that goal post. He's hurt. He's hurt.
He got up and kicked a couple more in the last quarter. Now Godden and Wilson clashing, the two from West Coast.
Two Eagles collided there. And both are in trouble behind play. This has opened the door. Those players still in trouble.
One's Godden and one's Wilson.
In towards
and Ablett in the last. As Robbo said, Gaza. As we go to the MCG, Longmire, unfortunately for him, I'll ask Scotty Palmer about his situation in a few minutes. Looks a serious knee injury. Chris Grant was in very good form in that second quarter when the Doggies kicked 10.
Grant has kicked a beauty.
Brett Allison was also injured and carried off the ground. This is his incident. Scotty will bring us up to date on his prospects of playing in the finals next week. Now, how this wasn't 50 metres, you couldn't believe it. Roberts on to him. West scoring here from Grigic, who kicked 6.
Looks good.
We go out to Waverley Park. Ball beating the defenders here for Richmond, and O'Brien getting one of his goals. He's had a really late rush, hasn't he, to the season. Richardson kicked 7 for Richmond, but he did miss this one. Carlton, Sydney, Werner, great snap. Now Sydney took it right up to the Blues, and remembering the Blues had a lot to play for here. They weren't to know that North were going to get beaten.
Oh, top goal.
And then Watters, who was a real mystery because he was on the bench for so much of the second half.
Turns and kicks a goal. A great goal.
Now this is when Sydney's coming back strongly. Rose to Minton Connell.
An open goal. Head pass. Minton Connell. Oh, scores 11.
And now the drama of the last 45 seconds.
Inside the last 40 seconds. Shocking by McMahon. They just need a behind Carlton. Welsh in the box seat. Takes the mark. Well, this will be the last kick of the match. Surely a score. It is. Carlton have won. Whatever the result.
And the Blues did get through, winning by a point. Remarkably, Sydney's last win in Melbourne was against Carlton at Princes Park early last year. Wilson, abuse of language, the only report so far against umpire Gold Spink. Interstate headlines. Well, they're saying in the Times that we're going to get rid of some passengers, maybe, for the Eagles as they face up to a final series where they must win 4 consecutive matches. In Adelaide, the Sunday Mail saying that Jarman is fit, he's in form, and they might start him in the centre today. And The Age in Melbourne is talking about that choking feeling. West Coast, North Melbourne, Carlton, and could it possibly be Adelaide at Footy Park today? Scotty Palmer joins us. Scotty, geez, there's a lot happening.
Oh, it's a terrific round, Bruce.
Ross Oakley's here. I'm sure that there'll be a lot of clubs wanting to contact him re this night final situation.
Carlton particularly. I reckon when he gets home there'll be a call on his answering service from Carlton because they're adamant they don't want to play in a night final. I spoke to them this morning and they just reiterate that they've only played under lights once this year, and they've got 3 or 4 players who wear those contact lenses too, including Stephen Kernahan. So they've got reason not to play in the night final. So that's one thing for the Chief Executive Officer down at the league to deal with when he gets off this program, Ross.
I'm Bruce and that's Ross. Ross, when's the decision going to be made about who plays at night?
The decision will be made at 7 o'clock tonight at a meeting of the league.
OK, we'll talk a little bit more about it.
I might also add that Stephen Kernahan, I think, has kicked either 8 or 10 goals under lights before too.
10 in the State of Origin
Doesn't
match.
look good for Carlton, does it?
You suggesting
I think he's
that...
done his homework.
No, I was just trying to correct Scotty's view that wearing contact lenses was, you know, a disaster for them.
If you feel like telling us before 7, we're on for another hour. OK, Longmire.
Longmire, not too good. I spoke to Pagan this morning after he'd taken his dog for a walk, and he said the reports aren't too confident on Longmire. He's seeing the doctor today, a specialist tomorrow, but it's doubtful. But the other boys, Allison's OK. He rang the coach this morning and said, I'm OK, coach. Now, Pagan said that if they lose Longmire, they'll bring in another big man like Ian Fairley, who's waiting on the sidelines for a go now. So he's not that sort of confident that Longmire is going to play, but he's not that worried either.
West Coast, they're going to get rid of some
For
players?
the first time in their life, I suppose, they're talking about passengers over there. And they're talking about bringing in Metropolis and Turnbull and Newgill and replacing some of those big names, particularly down forward. Essendon, they played young Hurd in the seconds yesterday, only played him half a match. He got through well and he'll play in the finals.
You didn't whisper Sumich to me then, did you?
I said something about that, yeah.
All right, Brereton?
Brereton broke down again in the seconds match at Cardinia Park, a slight hamstring strain, but he went to the disco last night, so he pulled up OK, but it looks like his finals campaign's over.
Same one you went to, Scotty.
Exactly.
Scotty, the situation with Ken Sheldon.
Yeah, very interesting, that one. You hear all these rumours about the possibility of Stan Alves taking over as coach down there. I do believe that Ken Sheldon over the last 5 or 6 weeks has reinforced his position, but you just keep on hearing things that there's going to be a restructuring down there with Phil Stevens, the amateur official, moving in some capacity as well. We can only wait. There could be something even as early as tomorrow morning.
And I tell you what, I have heard just a minute ago that Collingwood has backed themselves today to win their end-of-season trip against Adelaide.
That's terrific. I hope the Magpies do it.
Scotty, keep punching. We take a break. The panel after this.
I had a little prang on the way to Mum's house, but GIO Australia looks after my car insurance, so I just rang their 24-hour helpline. They gave me free legal advice, sent the tow truck, recommended a repairer, and got me a free local taxi to where I was going in the first place. Why did I go with GIO Australia? To be really sure.
Give GIO Australia a call.
And speaking of Geelong and speaking of Malcolm Blight, let's go back 2 years, remembering what's happening today in Adelaide. If Adelaide beats Collingwood, then Geelong misses out. If Collingwood win, Geelong go through. 2 years ago, Collingwood had to play Geelong in the final round to make it through. Sandy Roberts asked Malcolm about playing Collingwood in the final round of a season.
Next week, of course, Malcolm, down at Cardinia Park, Collingwood, that at least for Collingwood, is going to be, well, something more than the final, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose there's nothing like playing Collingwood in the last game of the year to bugger up their chances, is there?
Well, they won by 41 points at Geelong, so Blighty could laugh, or he'll be barracking for Collingwood hard today. Ian, you were there. It was a terrific game on Friday night. They're certainly good enough if they make it.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that I was a little bit sorry about, Bruce, that maybe we were going to see a final series in September without the Cats playing at their best, and they certainly got some great players. On Friday night, they got off to an enormous start, kicking 4 goals before the West Coast had settled down, and on the other hand, the Eagles fought back quite meritoriously and led by about 15 points just before three-quarter time. But their surge forward was led by their 2 champion wingmen, Mainwaring and Matera, and I thought Djakovic had a terrific battle with Barry Stoneham, but Stoneham in the finish with his physical presence, his ability to kick goals, he finished with 4, and Gary Ablett, just an absolute superstar. I thought Brennan was pretty good with his endeavours all night. That was a wonderful goal kicked by Mainwaring, and Matera kicked a couple of sensational goals as well. Couch was good in the middle. I think Paul Couch only needs about, well, he needs half as many possessions as any other player because he's got terrific vision and certainly delivers the ball to his forwards. Bairstow was enormous, and I thought he was without doubt best man on the ground. I've got to give tremendous credit to Barnes, who also played very well for Geelong.
And the young fellow at centre half back deserves a great deal of credit after having
Is that Herbert?
No, Colbert.
Colbert?
Yeah.
Yes, Bob, I took particular notice again that he's a tall boy. He needs a little bit of filling out, I guess, but tremendous promise, that young fellow, and he stuck to his task manfully.
Robbo, the West Coast, are they finished for the year?
Well, it's going to be a big job, isn't it, Jared? Because now they're in a cutthroat situation. They've just got to keep on winning games. I agree with what Scotty said. They had quite a few I call them non-contributors. I think if you're going to win a game of football, everybody has to do a few things, and it's a team performance, and they had guys, I think Sumic, Bernie mentioned, perhaps not quite as fit as he was last year. Brett Heady was a little quiet. You could go on naming West Coast players who just were under their normal value to the team.
Give us your votes, Robert, and then Chris Mainwaring will join us.
Well, I probably have to apologise to Chris because he was pretty close to Peter Matera as the West Coast best player, but Bairstow, only because he initiated everything all night. Right from the very start, Bairstow was as keen as mustard and gave Geelong a terrific example as a captain. Stoneham, I mentioned already, kicked 4 goals and probably finished on top of Djakovic. And Matera, just because of his sensational pace, his ability to just stay balanced, and as I said, he kicked 2 or 3 magnificent goals.
Chris Mainwaring does join us from Perth. Chris, what do you think's missing from West Coast at the moment?
Good question. I suppose if I had the right answer, we wouldn't be in the position that we were after Friday night. But probably just got to get back to doing the little small things that we were probably well known for over the last 2 or 3 years. So perhaps part of that's just dropped off, and a little bit of hunger. So I don't think there's major ingredients, but you know, there's just a bit that we've got to get back on the board.
Chris, you won the premiership last year. Do you feel as though there's a little bit of a hangover there? There doesn't seem to be any spark?
No, I suppose our last 2 performances would probably have people sort of thinking that, but you know, we had a big job. We knew we had to try and win 4 or 5 out of our last 6 games, but you know, I don't think there's any hangover. I just sort of think we've just got to get back to a lot of the basics, and you know, at this level of football, probably a lot of it gets down to mentally too. You know, especially around this sort of time of the year, so maybe we just got to be a bit stronger in the mind also.
Chris, you'd be very happy on a personal note with your own form?
Reasonably happy with the consistency. I suppose I stood off my men, well, both sort of men during the game, and allowed them to get a little bit too much of the ball, but hopefully sort of I was damaging enough to sort of you know, make a bit of an impact.
Chris, talking about hangovers, there appears to be a bit of a hangover with Peter Sumic's nicks. Is he heavy?
Sorry, what was that, Bobby?
Well, he's very heavy, isn't he? Sumic at the moment. Looks very...
No, I think he's sort of carrying the same weight. Perhaps he's because he's not kicking goals. He's drawing attention to himself. But you know, I think he's probably just got to get back out there and just take a few more shots at goals each week at training. But you know, I'm sure he is a big finals campaigner, has been shown over the years. So you know, you can never underestimate Peter Sumic.
Chris, perhaps the answer to what's missing from the Eagles is a number of players. One of your surfing buddies is missing. What's happened with Turley? What was the situation there?
Oh, I just think he decided that there was other things in life, Jared. You being a surfer could probably partly understand the want to sort of get away and into the freedom, into the surf. So I suppose he's chosen that lifestyle, and he's travelling somewhere around Australia at the moment.
Did you feel at three-quarter time that you're in a bit of a comfortable position and maybe just didn't surge enough at the start of the last quarter on Friday night?
Well, that was probably the disappointing fact, is that we were in front, and you know, the game sort of started off similar to last year's grand final, and the result at half-time was very similar also. And you know, we felt pretty confident in having that 9-point lead at three-quarter time. So to sort of not hang on to that lead and sort of and with so much at stake, and I suppose especially with the way the games have gone on the weekend, it's certainly been costly for us.
Chris, you've had a real problem with the WACA ground this year. Is there perhaps a structural problem with the side that you can't handle the smaller ground?
No, I don't think there's a problem there, but I mean, on that point, Jared, if you know, Carlton was sort of saying that they're having a few problems playing at night games, well, there goes our excuse, so we can't play next Friday either.
Well, it might not be Friday. I've got a feeling it has to... Is that true, Ross? Does it have to be Saturday night, the night game, and not Friday night?
No, I don't think it has to be Saturday night, because it just depends on whether we can give 6 or 7 days break to the teams. If we were looking at playing a game that involved a team that had played today, then we would certainly give them the extra day's break.
But surely at the end of a season, the programming should be no matches on Sunday in the last round. Why don't you play every game on a Saturday in the last round to give everyone a fair chance?
That's something that we can look at in the future, I think, yes.
Chris, good luck for the finals.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your contribution again today. A break after this. Ross is going to give some votes. It's Footscray against North Melbourne.
The Mark of the Week and the Mark of the Year are proudly sponsored by Mitsubishi Motors.
Well, Bob, we'll do a new format here. Here's Mark of the Day first up. John Howard, magnificent skill running back with one hand, and even Jakovic gave him a pat on the backside.
Yes, and we see Darren Cowell now, who is a most exciting player. An excellent mark there by Cowell.
Paul Brown, a screamer from behind.
And we'll see the champ himself, after being injured, straight up takes it in his usual inimitable fashion.
And Wayne Carey from behind, knocking over the big fellow Wine at the same time.
Why do I get this fellow to pronounce his name all the time? Grillage.
And well, Gilbert, it wasn't a special mark, but you got in anyhow. 2 grabs of the cherry.
Well, you said John Howard might have taken the mark of the day. Unfortunately for you, Paul Brown took the mark of the night and of the round. And we'll see him again. Paul Brown, a beautiful riding mark, brings it right to the ground at a very important time. Great mark by Paul Brown.
Congratulations to Paul. Hopefully for Geelong's sake, they'll be in the finals. If you're a Crow, you're hoping the other way. Ross Oakley was at the MCG yesterday. Ross, Footscray's form shouldn't be denied. It's been pretty good beating West Coast and also North in the last 2 weeks, but we are more interested in North Melbourne's form at this stage.
Yes, North showed, I think, a few signs of lack of concentration during the game yesterday. I think they had a bit of a focus on next week rather than the game yesterday. But I think the really key difference in the sides was when Longmire went off. 17 minutes into the first quarter, and whether coincidence or not, Footscray pulled back a 3-goal deficit at that stage and ended up 8 points in front at quarter time. They kicked 10 of the next 14 goals with pretty direct and purposeful football, showing, I think, a lot of commitment at the ball when there was really nothing to play for. They really had all the answers in the centre, and this guy, Grigic, kicked a couple of very telling goals and was great up forward. In the second half, Footscray started to chip the ball about a bit and seemed to be almost trying to save the game rather than go on and win it. And it allowed North to get back into the game through Carey and others. They started to pepper the goals, but they got 2 points from something like 4 set shots within inside 50 minutes at that time. So they really, I think, threw it away. And one of the most telling points at the end of the game, of course, was when Archer kicked into the man on the mark. And
What was your
That
feeling
was a very
there?
disappointing
Had Archer
finish.
goal, they would have been within a goal, and a draw would have been enough to give North the double chance.
Yes, well, you don't like throwing it all onto Archer's shoulders because he played a pretty good game. He was only just out of the votes. But it was a telling mistake. North were charging back at that stage.
Ross, the situation with the 6 teams that are going to make the finals, it's very, very difficult to pick a winner with even the top sides going ordinary. You know, their form is very, very ordinary. Can you see North still being a real chance to go all the way through?
It makes it a little harder for them now that they've lost the double chance, but it looks like they'll be playing against an interstate team in Melbourne. I suppose that gives them a slight advantage. No, they've still got enough talent there to win games in the finals, and it really does depend on who is in form at the right time next week and in the next 3 weeks.
Ross, Footscray, just mentioned them quickly. Some of the young fellows, very impressive yesterday. What about a few names?
Yes, I thought Quill was, a really good player, and Grigic, he was running about like a young, 5'5", 12 stone boy.
How about the gloves?
Well, I know there's a few on the panel that aren't a great rap for them. I'd prefer not to make a comment about that piece, Robbo.
What about your votes, Ross?
Right, the votes I gave one to Liberatore. He really did perform like a general on the field. I thought chesting players away in packs, and that's pretty hard when you're 5'0". But he was receiving the ball, he was under the packs getting the ball. I gave 2 to Quill, probably his best game, I think, for the club to date. And Grigic, well, I hope I pronounced his name correctly. I'll certainly get it right before Brownlow night because I know I'll need to read it out. He was doing everything, marking the ball, kicking the ball, tapping the ball on. Terrific game.
Thanks, Ross. Thank you for that. Ross, Wayne Schwass is our special guest. Wayne, what about the focus for North Melbourne yesterday? Was it full on? Because that's been one of the great features of your game this year and the way that you've approached each match.
Yeah, I think the focus was there. Obviously, a season of hard work came down to one game. It was very disappointing. The players are very disappointed in the fact that we lost the double chance, but we have to remain positive. We're still in the finals race. We have to win next week, and that's what we'll focus on from now.
And any information on the injured players, particularly Longmire's?
Well, we don't really know. It's too early to say at this stage. He's got to see a specialist, and we'll just wait and see how he comes up early on the week. If Johnny comes up, well and good, but if he doesn't, it gives someone else an opportunity.
Wayne, there was a suggestion in the press this morning that you might be carrying an injury. Have you got any problems?
No, it's just I don't seem to be able to get enough of the ball at this stage, but hopefully we can turn things around in the space of a week. So.
There seemed to be a lot of feeling out there, a lot of back chat, I suppose. Is that true observation yesterday, Wayne, between the Footscray and North guys?
I think in any game that's pretty well. That was an important game for us, and obviously Footscray wanted to show their worth. And
well, Tony Liberatore seemed to be a bit vocal, telling 1 or 2 North Melbourne players.
Oh, I think that might be Libber's nature. He lets you know what's going on out there, and that's fine with me. It's part of the game, I suppose, and you accept it.
If Longmire misses, for North Melbourne fans, I know you've only got a week, who would be some of the names that you could throw up? I mean, he takes a key forward position, doesn't he, John Longmire?
Yeah, he's such a focal point with us, but as I said, one door shuts, another opens, and I think, a bloke that's sort of knocking on the door now would certainly be Ian Fairley. He's a tremendous player for us, a very underrated player, and I'd say he'd be a good chance to get back in the side.
Have the North Melbourne players got any problems with playing at night?
No, I think that the boys' attitude that they'll have, I'm pretty sure that they'll have. They're happy and they're very glad to be in the finals, so we'll just take it as it comes, whether it be day or night, we'll just give it our best shot.
And on that same point, looking ahead, if Adelaide loses today, you play Geelong, and if Adelaide wins, you'll play West Coast. Do you have a preference? Remembering Geelong's form.
Geelong gave us a bit of a hiding there a little while ago, but what has happened in the past, you can't change that, so we'll just look forward to whoever we play next week.
So that's the scenario. It's either West Coast or Geelong. It's a pretty hard run for the number 3 team, isn't it?
Yes, it's interesting because Geelong are playing very, very well, and if they can get in there, I'm sure they're going to be formidable opposition for North Melbourne.
Rock's the other one I think a lot of North Melbourne fans want to know about.
Yeah, Rocky had a slight hamstring strain last week, but he'll be back in the side next week. And
how's Carey, Wayne?
Yeah, Wayne's... he's a fantastic player. We really do need him in the side. He's very inspirational. He's back, and related injuries seem to be coming along okay, so he's all right.
Wayne, Dennis seems towards the final time, it's only sharp work that you're doing, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not really going to get any fitter. Your skills aren't going to improve, so it's just to touch up a few basic areas and just concentrate on the task ahead.
Is he a personal coach a lot of the time, or is he a real team coach?
No, he's both. He's a people management sort of person. He knows how to handle guys individually and guys as a group, so he's been fantastic in that area.
It's interesting just to see your body language there, talking about Pagan. You obviously respond to his coaching. Good luck.
Thank you.
Wayne Schwass. We take a break. Carlton, Sydney after this.
Goal of the Year are proudly sponsored by BP.
Well, all the way to Sydney, and Paul Bryce will figure in just a moment. There it is, deep in the forward pocket. Impossible angle, but he got it through somehow.
Terrific goal, though. Well, goals kicked on Friday night were quite magnificent, and this was one of them by Chris Mainwaring from just inside 50 metres on a bit of an angle there, and he popped it straight through the centre.
Goal-kicking wingmen are important, and Brett Allison, he was the man for North Melbourne yesterday. Unfortunately, did his knee, but he'll be important in the finals.
And certainly a player that Footscray will be looking forward to many, many games from. Chris Grant, that was an excellent goal against North Melbourne yesterday.
The next fellow's a real contributor for Sydney. Darren Cresswell, there he is, just getting the foot. But just watch that ball. It just deviated, turned in the air, actually. It was a fantastic kick.
Now, Richard Osborne will be asked to do many, many things, more things like this for the Swans. It was a terrific kick by Richard Osborne.
This man does all his work up on the forward line. It's Chris Naish, and this is an excellent snap. Look, and watch the break. Fantastic.
Very promising young player for the Saints, Damon Shaw, features here. A couple of times looks as though he's going to give the hand pass away, then decides to take it all on his own. And a top effort by an exciting young player.
Well, we disagreed, didn't we? Now, I don't know who's got the goal of the day.
But we're supposed to make the decision.
Well, we've left it to the director. Who is it?
Well, who did you?
I went for Paul Bryce.
I went for Damon Shaw. So
yeah, we'll just wait for the director now to adjudicate. Damon Shaw got it.
Well, he's your man.
He's
your man.
He
You're
actually
very,
is.
very impressed with this young fellow.
I reckon this fellow has got it. I shouldn't say that because he mightn't live up to that prediction, but
well, he shows a lot of ability.
But
here,
he's mentally tough. I like the way he gets the ball out of the centre, and he's got great skill. I think he's all right, Shaw. Probably great to see.
Probably his problem is that you said it, Don, not that somebody else said it. You're such a poor judge. The John Coleman, it looks like he'll win it unless Tony can kick 10 today. Gary might win it on the countback. No, they'd share it. Dunstall 107, so we've got 3 men. Poor old Longmire, it looks like he won't be adding. Sumich, well, Bobby reckons he's got a problem, and Rocco 69, he'll probably add to that today. Gerard Healy at Princes Park. It was almost as if Carlton knew that North was going to get beaten because they did have so much to play for. They would have been kicking themselves this morning had North got up and they missed out.
Yeah, it was quite unbelievable. I thought Carlton started the game content just to do enough, and they led by 20 points at three-quarter time and things were going to plan. Bradley and Williams were playing well in the centre, and it did look as if Carlton were going to just cruise to an easy win and get the 5 goals that they required. But then in the last quarter, sparked by individual performances from David Murphy in his last game, and Richard Osborne, I thought, really did put his foot on the accelerator, gave Sydney something to fire at, and they almost created one of the most memorable wins in the club's history in the last couple of years. It was interesting after the game, a large percentage of the crowd stayed, and they were obviously listening to the result from the Western Oval because there was a massive cheer when the...
MCG.
Well, the MCG, was it? When the result of the Footscray and North Melbourne game came up, and it just did really complete what was probably the great escape for Carlton, and perhaps that last point that Rowan Welsh kicked will be regarded as one of the most important points in the history of the game for quite some time.
Gerard, isn't it another example of when you've got 20 guys pretty committed, that a game of football is there to be won, isn't it? I mean, no team can go on the ground and strut their stuff thinking that they're going to beat the opposition, especially if the opposition are very committed.
Well, I think it goes to show what importance that the collective mental state of the opposition or the team does play. And it was clear that after three-quarter time, Carlton just dropped off a little bit. The Swans peaked. and their young players came to the fore also, and they've got something to look forward to. And I speak of Rose, who did particularly well in the middle against Justin Madden. In fact, the big dinosaur was dragged at just into the last quarter, and fresh legs were brought on the ground. Robert Neal was brought back from Canberra, and he looks impressive. Mooney, a good player in the making. And also Stafford, who wasn't great yesterday, but he's a ruckman of the future.
Jared, is Sydney better than we've thought? Have we underestimated their talent bank?
No, Ross, I don't think we have at all. I think they're almost, at the start of the year, I thought they were quite devoid of any real talent. They lack leadership. That's their biggest problem. And there was a couple of instances yesterday, particularly when one of their players went off the ground, that they were left one man short in the fence, that the leadership didn't come through. And I think they've got some good young players, but they still need to get some senior players to show them the way.
Give us your votes, Chair.
Well, I go 3 to Craig Bradley. His performance in the first half particularly was enormous. He also came to the fore when the game was there to be won in the last quarter. Michael Sexton continues his good form at centre-half back, and Fraser Brown, a Craig Bradley lookalike, he also performed quite well.
Jared, the Swans have been beaten by 1 point and you couldn't slot any one of their players into the 3-2-1.
Not one, Robert.
Unbelievable.
And Ross has just got his calculator out. Jared, he's taken one concession draft off the Swans after your comment.
That's right.
Honestly, Ross, you have to be a mathematician to work that new draft set up, huh?
Yes, it is not the most simple system we could find, but we think it's the best because it does give draft choices to those clubs that are perennial poor performers. You can't just look at it over 1 year, or you just can't look at even 2 years in our view. You should look back over a period of years, and if a club is a perennial poor performer, then this system will assist them.
I was going to ask this later on, Ross, when we were going to attack you, but did it make any difference that the two interstate clubs, that they were on the bottom? Did that really make a difference to the draft choices at all?
Well, no, it didn't. We wanted to put a system in place that would apply to any club.
Yeah.
We've certainly given the two development states, as we call them, some additional assistance, at least for 3 years, because we believe that getting local players into their clubs is very vital in terms of a cultural thing, not so much to improve their player strength. But no, the system is there to benefit any club that finishes up in their predicament.
OK, we'll just leave it at that because we will talk to you about a couple of other matters shortly. Bob, St Kilda and Richmond, the Saints have come home with a rush. They've won 5 out of their last 6 and let Collingwood get through on them.
They certainly have, and I think that Kenny Sheldon can sit quite safely in his position as coach. He's the second most successful coach of all time for St Kilda. For anyone to want to take that position away from him. It wasn't a great game in the first half, I must admit that, but they did double their score in the second half, the Saints, and I think that both the teams have got something very good to look at. And Ross, just by the way, don't worry about the ground, it's in perfect condition. So there's one thing you've got off your plate. You can play out at Waverley quite safely. Now, Kenny Sheldon has got the fellow Everett, who looks to be a most promising player. Northey has got Richardson, who, if he works at his strength and also at his kicking, could be anything, Richardson. And when you go through their teams, I'm only doing it as a sort of a review. St Kilda have got Nathan Burke, and they've found Robert Harvey in their correct position, and I think also McAdam there, but they've got Everett.
Where do
they've
they
got
play
Darren
McAdam?
Oh no, as a sweeper, halfback almost in the full back line, but he seems to be able to determine what he's going to do much better there. They've got Darren Burke, they've got Hollow, O'Brien there, Justin Pickett, and Damien Shaw we've spoken about, all very good players. For Richmond, they're not quite as lucky. John Northey has got 2 or 3, Lennon, Richardson, and the boy Tyson and Esler, and he's got Gale firing a lot better. I think that there is good hope for them.
Your votes, Bob?
The votes I gave 1 to Richardson, who kicked 7 goals, and he certainly is a most exciting player, but his kicking is very poor at the moment, even though he kicked 7 goals. Dwyer seemed to be improving every time I've watched him play. He's been in the best players, and Everett is a most exciting young player. He needs a build-up of strength, that's all, to be a very good player.
Last weekend, Ross Glendinning gave these votes. Roberts, Laidley, Smith, Sydney, North Melbourne, and Bernie Quinlan went in the Richmond-Melbourne game for Lovell, who kicked 8, Viney and Phoebe, as we take a look at the Player of the Year.
The Sportsworld Player of the Year is proudly sponsored by Telecom Australia.
Now these are the runners-up, Lovett and Lynch and Carey, McKenna, Ablett, Hocking and Bradley, because Greg Williams has won the Telecom Player of the Year. Congratulations to Greg. At Australia's own Telecom Mobile Network, we'll be providing Greg with a digital mobile phone worth more than $2,000 plus $1,000 in free calls. So I'm sure Jared will give you a buzz. And you have a look at that knee of his.
Take him 6 months to use his calls up. He doesn't speak that often.
He might be speaking on Brownlow Medal night. Who knows? We'll take a break. Back with more after this. Come down to that, will it be Collingwood, Adelaide or Geelong, or was that Domingo, Carreras or Pavarotti? Maybe that's an even harder question. We're all wanting to have our own predictions in the finals. We took a slightly different line.
Come in, come in. If you want to find out the fate of your favourite football team, come in. There are 6 teams in the finals and I'll be picking 6 cards at random which will show you the fate of your teams. The first team is Geelong, and Geelong have drawn the justice card, unfortunately in this case the injustice card, which means they're going to have to watch out for a lot of bad decisions from the umpire, which looks like they're going to have to fight the umpire as well as the opposite team. The second team is Carlton, and they've drawn the chariot, the Blues. Now it looks like their news is good and they'll stand a very good chance, but there is travel showing up with them. The third team is Adelaide, and oh look, they've drawn the Devil. Now the problem that can be with Adelaide is there could be some illness affecting the stomach coming up with a few of them, and that can cause a lot of trouble on that particular day. The next team is Essendon, and oh look, they've drawn the Lover. Now that means they're going to have a lot of reasons to celebrate. Also looks like one of their teammates is getting married or having babies. Very fertile period. The next team is Hawthorn, and they've drawn the Hermit, which indicates a bit of scandals, a bit of problems coming out of the past. They'll really have to watch someone not turning up on the day or getting lost. Oh look, North Melbourne. North Melbourne has drawn the Sword, and it's also drawn the fact that they can get their way through any barriers. They stand a very good chance. The last team to be drawn is the West Coast Eagles, and their fortunes are about to undergo a lot of changes. Their problem could come from injuries, setbacks, people not getting there on time.
Bobby, thanks for providing the name and address of the talent we used there.
The lady had the wrong tarot card. It was upside down, the last one. I couldn't get a good look at it.
I wonder if I've heard about... That's where we got the baby bombers from. Come on, predictions for the day, in one word, basically, the three games.
Melbourne, Hawthorn, and come on the Pikes.
Melbourne, Hawthorn and Adelaide.
Melbourne, Hawthorn, Adelaide.
Yeah, it's the same, Bruce.
Ross?
Melbourne, Hawthorn and Collingwood.
Collingwood. Don't forget that match will be shown live in Adelaide today, which is a concession from the AFL. How did that originate?
Well, there was tremendous demand for tickets, Bruce, and as it was the last game of the year, we decided to let it go live and let what will be tens of thousands of people watch it live on TV.
I think everyone applauds that decision. Could we put you under the griller for a moment?
Sure.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
Now, I want to ask you one. Is it true that West Coast and Adelaide have been given an assurance that they won't be playing a final in Melbourne under lights?
No, they have been given no such insurance.
So the person that told me that yesterday is not right?
That's correct.
So at this stage, it's not a fait accompli that it'll be Essendon and Carlton?
No, it isn't, but a lot of the clubs did actually say when they were making submissions to us some month ago that whilst they agreed that a night final would be okay, they didn't think a Melbourne team or an interstate team should be required to play a night final if they've had to travel. And there were quite a few clubs that actually made that point, but we've given no assurances.
It would be the obvious choice, though, the North Melbourne, sorry, the Carlton and Essendon one, because it's not an elimination game, surely.
That's another plus for calling it the night final, but I wouldn't rule Geelong out just yet, and it could well be that there'll be two other Melbourne teams playing in the finals.
They'll be in an elimination game if they make it.
That's right, they will be. Yes.
What's it worth to the AFL financially for Geelong to get in and not Adelaide?
Probably of the order of $100,000, something of that nature.
Would a Friday night game be more prudent than a Saturday night game, saying that the football followers would have trouble getting from AFL Park to the Melbourne Cricket Ground if they were played on the one day?
Yeah, I suppose that assumes that the people who are going to Waverley are going to venture to another game on that day.
Yeah, but there will be quite a lot of them, won't there?
Yeah, I'm not too sure how many there will be.
But it works in the reverse because Adelaide people can't get to Melbourne on a Friday night as easily as they could on a Saturday, and vice versa for West Coast. I've got the feeling, and I know you haven't said it, that Essendon will be playing Carlton on Saturday night. That's my bet. I reckon you haven't quite said it, Ross, but you've given us a lead.